All right, so to create the top and the bottom of this guy, right? So the top beam and the bottom beam, I'm going to finish the mass because if I create it inside here, it's going to be a mass and I don't want it to be a mass. So I'm just going to go to finish mass here. And that takes me back out to the project. You can always also, if you ever want to look at it without the masses on, you can go to the massing in site and tell it to show mass by view settings. And you'll see just, these are actually generic models. So they, that's what they're categorized as when they come in. So if I pick this and edit that family and look at the family category and parameters, it's set to generic models. I could actually set it to columns, right? And click OK, and then load that into project and overwrite the existing family. And it will go in and it'll actually, now those will show up in the columns instead of in the, but anyway, so that's why they're still showing. But what I want to do now is turn the masses back on. So I'll go to massing at site, show mass form and floors, is I want to put the beam that goes along this guy, right? And so I'm going to do that as structural framing. So if I go to architecture component model in place, I can come in and go to structural framing and click OK. And I'll name this, structure beams. Okay. And then I'll just do a sweep, right? So if I do a sweep, I can pick the path, right? So if I pick 3D edges, it's not letting me do it. Well, that's annoying. So it's letting me pick 3D edges and it doesn't see these guys as 3D edges, which is a little bit of a drag, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Rhino and I'll make that a 3D edge and bring it back in. Okay, so if I go to Rhino, I guess you could just loft it. So if I come in and pick these two guys, right, let's just pick those two and loft them. And I'll need the same for these two, so I'll go ahead and pick those two and loft them. Right, click OK. And then let's just grab these two and file, export selected, right? And if we look at the options in the default, just to qualify what's going to happen, it's going to export surfaces as curves, and we don't want to do that. So I'm going to close that. And instead of default, I'll pick the 2007 solids. And if I edit schemes on that, you'll see that it's going to do surfaces as solids and meshes as meshes. So I'll close that and click OK. And I'll call this 2D structure lofts. Okay. And click OK. And it'll export those guys. And then if I go back to Revit, I can go, let's go ahead and cancel out of this guy, right? Cancel the family that I started. And I'll go to architecture, insert link CAD. And let's go grab that 2D structure loft and just open it. And it'll bring that in. And then I'll use that to do, so I'll go to architecture component model in place again and go grab the structural framing, right? And click OK, click OK. Now, if I go to sweep and pick path, it will see those edges, right? You see how it's seeing those edges? Let me go to wireframe, probably easier to see. And so I'll cancel that and start over. So just because I have a 3D, right, I'll go to wireframe. I can now go to pick path and pick 3D edges, and it sees those 3D edges, right? And once I get those edges, I can go to edit profile. And it's yelling at me because this is a weird angle for it. But I'm just going to go to circle and draw a circle there. And if I pan out and pick that circle, it's telling me it's 5 inches. I'm going to go annotate, and I'm going to go to diameter. And I'm just going to pick the circle, and it'll give me a diameter dimension on that, right? So I can pick that and create a parameter, and I'll just call this diameter to be easy enough, okay? And then if I hit check and check again, it'll sweep that around with that diameter. I can also pick it while it's a form and put a material parameter on it. So I'll come in here and say material, right? And click OK. And now I'm going to go to create again. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So if I do a sweep on the bottom, pick the path, 1, 2, it's going to yell at me again because it's still at a funny angle. I'll check when I'm done picking. Go to edit profile, still yelling at me for no reason. Go to circle, come over here, make sure I'm on that point, pick that, and then do the same thing, annotate and diameter, and pick that. And now if I pick that dimension, instead of making a new parameter, I can come in and say, I want that diameter to be the same as the previous one. So I'll just pick that. So now those are both connected, right? And I've just selected on nothing. So I hit check and check. And now I've got this big guy down there. I can set the same material parameter, right, for that. And then if I finish the model, now I've got that top and bottom. And if I go to shaded, right, if I pick that and I go to edit type, those parameters show up here. So there's my material. So if I go into the material and just do carbon steel, right, and I change this to, let's just do 4 inches, right, and click OK. Now both of those update, right, so I've got those done. So the next thing is to create the glass, or I guess I'll create, it's the same process for creating the other inner circle, but I'll go in and create the glass next.